Welcome back for an extra spicy helping of oysters, clams, and cockles presented by Bolin Media. I am Ross Bolin here with Mr. Barrett Dudley. How we doing, Barrett?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Now, of course, I would be doing a lot better if you had been so kind as to provide us with tasty churros today.
Oh, yeah. Could have shared a churro, you and I.
Churro, but that's okay. I'll just have to get one later, you know?
Maybe I would have taken a bite of your churro, you know? Made it a little erotic.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, just feeling like I can't wait to get back out there on the pickleball court, you know? I was hooked just the first time. I got to play for the first time a couple weeks ago, and then just watching this movie, it really just made me like, I'm just ready to get my own paddle and get back out there and really slap it around a little bit.
Really embrace the pickleball life.
Yeah.
Slap it around, huh? Yeah, because pickleball, as we all know, it's tennis.
It's basically tennis,
but without all the running.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And there is some running,
but minimal,
but not as much as our tennis pros on challengers have to do.
We are here to discuss today the 2024 film starring Zendaya, Challengers. Challengers. First question. Where did you watch?
So Laura and I, we went to the theater.
The theater.
To enjoy this on the large screen. Yeah. So we did the 6 p.m. showing at Draft House and saw this in a theater.
Little date night.
Yeah.
What were the vibes like in the theater? Why I ask. It's been a long time since I've seen like a sexy
like
film,
a horny movie.
Yeah, horny movie in the theater.
Yeah. This was in one of the smallest movie theaters I've ever been in. The South Lamar Draft House has done like some renovating, and I think they like carved out some space for like 2 or 3 additional screens, and there are like in the stadium section of it, like in the
okay.
So basically, there you got your front row, then there's the gap, and then there are only 3 rows behind that.
So it really felt like a snuff film, like you were in a jack-off theater. That's what it felt like.
No, it didn't. it didn't feel like that. I was expecting more horniness in the theater, I thought, and there was. I didn't.
Minimal horniness.
Minimal horniness.
Would you say you were the most horny person in your theater?
I mean, at any given point, I feel like it's possible that I'm the horniest person in a room.
That's how I feel too. So we're gonna really be in for it today. I watched. Okay, so Barrett went to the theater.
Yeah,
and I watched at home because it came out on demand.
You can rent this now. It's new, so it's like $20 to rent. And I didn't even give Laura the option. I didn't even tell her that. I was like, we're going to the theater. Just because I didn't want to like, I love going to the movie theater first and foremost. And I just didn't want to have to like pause this 8 times, you know?
Yeah. And
and
frankly, now that I've seen it, I had sound plays a big factor in this thing.
It does, absolutely.
That would be much more enjoyable in the theater.
Yes. And so this is, we've mentioned them a lot recently. Score here by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. If you don't know them from anything else, you'll know them from the soundtrack, the score to The Social Network.
Oh yeah,
that's like I think they won the Oscar for it.
And then Atticus Ross did Shogun,
and Atticus Ross just did Shogun.
Covered.
Yep. And they've paired together to do a bunch of stuff that they have a very recognizable sound. Which is evident in like throughout the score here, but the main title track, Challengers. You go pull it up on Spotify, and you will have flashbacks to watching this movie because they play it, they cue it, I don't know, 20 times throughout the film, where it comes back on.
Over and over and over,
to indicate that essentially the match is back on.
That tennis is happening.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Great score, great sound overall in this film.
Yeah, and it was fine at home. I'm not saying it wasn't. Yeah. And I can definitely see why they did because it's only been in theaters a few weeks, a month,
maybe a month, yeah.
But you can see why they put it out on demand pretty quickly, just because it's like, well, for one, for older horny guys that don't want to embarrass themselves in a movie theater watching horny tennis movies. You can just rent this bad boy at home.
Yeah. I will note though, I believe that it is still crushing at the box office.
Really?
I think it's doing like for what it is think it's doing numbies. I think it's like the biggest hit of the season so far.
So it's $55 million budget.
Okay.
And it says, oh yeah, it's definitely going to, worldwide it's done $78 million already, so they've made their money back.
Yep.
Doing pretty well.
Yes. And I think it's, I don't know much about like how wide of a release it was or how far, how if it was in every single theater across the country or what, but like, yeah, it's I think it's largely been very, very successful.
Yeah, and it feels a little, I doubt it was in every theater. I doubt it was like the maximum release because it's like kind of niche, this thing.
It is,
like,
it's a little niche.
Let me read the premise.
Yeah.
A couple different variations of it. First from IMDb. Tashi, a former tennis prodigy turned coach, turned her husband into a champion. But to overcome a losing streak, he needs to face his ex-best friend and Tashi's ex-boyfriend. That's from IMDb. Here's the Rotten Tomatoes one. From visionary filmmaker Luca
Guadagnino? Guadagnino?
Challenger stars Zendaya as Tashi Duncan, a former tennis prodigy turned coach and a force of nature who makes no apologies for her game on and off the court. Married to a champion on a losing streak, Mike Feist, West Side Story, Tashi's strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against the washed-up Patrick, which is played by Josh O'Connor from The Crown, his former best friend and Tashi's former boyfriend. As their pasts and presents collide and tensions run high, Tashi must ask herself, what will it cost to win? What will we all have to ask ourselves that every day, don't we?
I ask myself that every day.
That's life.
Yep,
that's life.
Sure
all right.
Sure is.
Let's get into this thing. We knew going in, everybody that is on the internet had seen the marketing that is a photo essentially of Zendaya on a bed, flanked by these two white boys. And I assume everybody going into this movie knows it's going to involve a love triangle.
Yes.
And some tennis. That was the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Luca Guadagnino. It looks like
most famously, Call Me by Your Name.
Yes.
Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer. And I've actually not seen that movie.
I haven't either.
Okay.
I haven't either. His other movie is Suspiria or whatever.
The Shia LaBeouf one? Is that what I'm thinking of? No. That's
different. That's different.
Okay, so I'm not what.
I'll show you the cover art for Suspiria.
And who's in Suspiria?
It was real weird. It's the chick from. This isn't helpful, is it?
Dakota
Johnson, the chick from 50 Shades of Grey.
Right. Okay.
But I watched like 20 minutes of it one night. That was the cover art.
All right.
Yeah, I watched 20 minutes of it one night and was like, nah, I'm out. Anyway, It just made me kind of chuckle that they referred to him as visionary filmmaker.
Well, Call Me by Your Name was a big hit and was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, and I think had a similar I can't say it, so I can't speak to it. I imagine after having seen Challengers that Call Me by Your Name it's obviously a film that a lot of people liked and was nominated for awards. But my guess is that it's a vibe film, just like this one was, because this one was heavy on vibes. This dude had a vibe, and he was like, I want to make a movie and do vibes. And then the movie kind of followed the vibes. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So that's kind of what I would expect from Call Me by Your Name. And it had a lot of it was very aesthetic. It's used in memes and all sorts of that and all sorts of stuff like that. It's out there on the mood boards, right? It brought back people to a lot of 90s style and that type of thing. So it was in that Saltburn Challengers realm of it made some waves on the internet. But yeah, I think it does feel slightly early to call him visionary filmmaker. But
it just sounds a little bit hyperbolic.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I'll say this. I do get it because he does a lot of crazy things visually.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah.
At one point he's like, fuck it. Let's put the camera in the ball.
POV, you're the tennis ball.
You become the tennis ball. And that's toward the end when he's really fuck it.
He's throwing it all out.
Yeah. Using the whole toolbox, Barrett. But there are a lot of different moments in the movie where they do really cool things visually and you're like, whoa. At one point, the two dudes are playing tennis and the camera just starts zooming and you go past the what is it? The referee called in tennis, the scoring person.
Yeah, the scorer's something.
Whatever.
Podium.
The ref. You go past that like straight. Like eventually you hit Zendaya, but like anyway. Point being, our boy Luca does a lot.
Yeah, he's got some style. He's got some real style, some visual flair, and that is certainly evident in this movie.
One of the things that makes it stand out for sure. And then I'd say one of the other biggest things that makes it stand out is the soundtrack by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is like really not what you expect going into this thing at all.
I did not. Yeah.
Heavy techno.
Yeah, industrial.
Crazy vibes the whole time.
Yeah.
And it like kicks in over, like you said, that one song over and over and over. Just it really, if you at any point get bored, the soundtrack is what's keeping you locked in.
Totally.
You're just like, what? Whoa. Okay, I'm back.
Yep.
All right, I'm off my phone. Sorry. But yeah, okay. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is how you felt about the actual tennis scenes.
Yeah.
Like you've watched a decent amount of tennis in your life. So have I. How'd you think they pulled it off athletically? Because this is like when you make a sports movie, it's one of the big hurdles you have to clear.
Yeah, this is a good place to start. Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. If you're going to make a sports movie, I expect the sports to look like sports. I want people that look like they have swung a racket before.
Right.
And I would give the tennis playing and the overall athletic ability of the people in this film, I think I'm going with an A minus maybe. I think I'm going to go A minus.
Okay.
I thought everybody looked the part. And honestly, I want to come back to this, but because the aging and the de-aging, phenomenally
that was
done.
really well done,
phenomenally done. But at the end, when Art and what's his Peter?
Patrick.
Thank you. When Art and Patrick are 30-year-old pros, they have the fucking bodies, dude. They look like tennis players.
Yeah.
And I thought that their movement on court was pretty good. I thought that they had the serve motion down really, really well. Zendaya, I thought, looked the part. And look, I don't mind the cheats because I would rather it look. I don't want them to stretch their actors too thin. There was a lot like Zendaya was stationary a lot. You know, kind of like where they would like do this, like they would be kind of front and center on her,
and the other girl's just hitting the ball right back to her.
Yeah, and that crossed my mind when they in some of those shots, but I was also like, okay, well they can't like have her like. They obviously want this camera angle where they are kind of like right on her and then kind of like going towards her, so they can't have her going. Sideline to sideline.
In fairness, that does happen sometimes when one player is so overpowering the other that the other is just like hitting it back to the middle over and over while they sprint back and forth, which was. But yes, that flagged for me as like this is a 30-second zoom in on her, literally not having to move a foot to the left or right as she continues returning. Here.
Yes, so I did notice that, but I thought that overall, I thought that she had the motion down. I thought she had the look down, and I was pretty satisfied with the tennis of this movie, and I was ready to knock it. You know what I mean? Because that is something
a
that
lot of
sports
movies they blow it so badly.
But this one apparently they all like months before the movie they were training. They had a tennis coach. They were taking the lessons. They were doing the thing. So I appreciated that aspect of the film.
I thought Zendaya was probably the most believable.
Okay.
In terms of the tennis, I did notice at one point that they were going pretty heavy on the CGI tennis ball. Now, you've seen stuff like Steph Curry draining 5 full court threes in a row, right?
Yeah,
so you're aware they are very, very good at manipulating sports footage with CGI now these days. And they were putting a lot of that into the longer back and forth
rallies.
The rallies, because they. Look, you can't expect any of these actors to be able to hit the ball as hard as a professional tennis player or a really good tennis player even would. Yeah. But in terms of her like movement and her look and her body type, really, all very believable. I thought she did a great job. I would say Mike Feist, the dude who played Art Donaldson.
Yep.
He was also really, really good. There were moments with Josh O'Connor, who plays Patrick Zweig, where I was like, you never played tennis a day in your life, sir.
Yeah.
Where it's the shorthand shit that gives it away, where it's like, you don't pull the racket back far enough, and now I know you've never like you're not good at sports.
I do think that Feist had the better. I mean, he had the more realistic tennis body, I thought, and the overall look down better, and the movement, like you're saying, yes. There was they I wonder if they wrote it into the script or if it was always there. It's probably always there. But they even comment on Patrick's serve, how he has that little like
it's his style,
that hitch, that short kind of pullback on the serve, which is not how like,
it's not typical.
If you want to go all the way, like you have to learn how to do the full on fucking like coil your body up, wind up, and do that thing. But I did think. I thought they did a nice job with his body as well. He had the tennis arms.
It's arms, legs, and abs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's the tennis.
Yeah,
tennis guy.
This is where I also want to take a moment to say that I think on the male side of things, I think tennis body is the hottest athlete body that's out there.
Where's soccer in that ranking? Because they're kind of similar.
Probably close, but tennis. Here's why I like the tennis body. If I'm just like, give me a male athlete bod, I'm going tennis because it's more balanced. You get awesome legs, but also awesome arms.
It's more Greek Adonis.
Yes, where I feel like soccer, it's a little heavier on the thighs and the quads and
those dudes' legs are ridiculous.
And the legs, and a little lighter on the body, on like the up top and the arms.
Yeah, less shoulders.
Sure. Now you look at a guy like CR7, like Cristiano, and he was
but
like,
even
he was like, fuck this, I can't have I have to go build up my upper body to match the lower half because I'm as vain as they come, and you know what I mean.
But even his shoulders are like, I mean, if
narrower,
like he's lacking compared to his like thigh situation,
right.
You know,
yeah.
But no, look, and that's one of the things they clearly wanted to make a point about here that Luca, the filmmaker, went after was like, I'm gonna use tennis body sexiness and sexuality and like fucking, it's gonna ooze out of this screen.
Yeah. Do you think that so he didn't write this film? Right?
Don't believe so,
I don't think
but
he did.
I'll check.
I'm pretty sure I remember at the end it was like directed by Luca Guadagnino, written by Justin something, I want to say. But I feel like he and the writer came together and they were like, the theme of this movie is that tennis is sex. Right?
Yeah.
Don't you think that? Yeah.
No, they even say at one point like tennis is a relationship.
Well, and that line from Zendaya is from Tashi, the Dunkinator.
The Dunkinator.
I feel like that's the first thing that they wrote. I feel like the first thing that was written in the script was that whole thing about how tennis is a relationship, and for 15 seconds out there, you're out there and you know each other and you're having a conversation, but you're also having sex, and it's like and that's the realest thing that you can that you can experience basically as a human. And because they there's that, and then it's essentially echoed and restated in the final scene of the movie.
Right.
So yeah, that kind of just carries into like where I thought I almost felt like this movie was reverse engineered from that kernel of an idea, and then like spun backwards to create the story around it.
Yeah, the writer Justin was correct. It's Justin Kuritzkes.
Okay.
Kuritzkes. So I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but
okay, sounds good.
He is apparently married to fellow director and writer Celine Song.
Okay.
Who may have done Past Lives.
All right.
Yeah, she did Past Lives.
Okay.
So that's one that got a lot of
cool,
buzz last year. But yeah, they were sexy tennis movie. That's what this thing is, man. It's kind of a weird ride too.
Did you watch this with your wife, by the way? Did she watch it?
She fell asleep with about 30 minutes left.
Okay.
And so I watched the final 30 minutes alone, and got to be baffled by myself. But I'll say that the story. So I should give my thoughts on the athleticism of it all first. I guess I kind of did. No, I finished. I'm good. The tennis was good enough.
Yeah, it was good enough. Yep.
It wasn't like, oh, this is. Because that can ruin a sports movie. You got to have that look down. You got to have it look real in terms of like these people are good enough and it's believable enough. And I thought it was good enough. In terms of the story, It definitely is interesting, especially through the first like 45 minutes where they're like building it up and it's like, okay, these two guys, they're best friends. They've known each other since they were like little bitty kids, right? Like 10-year-olds or whatever. Their whole lives have been about tennis. They're, getting ready to go to the next level, whether it be college or going pro. They go to this tournament and they see this girl, Tashi.
They're at the U.S. Open Juniors.
Right.
They win doubles.
Yes.
And then they are playing against each other
in the final.
In the singles final. Meanwhile, they watch Tashi win and then go to her party.
Her Adidas party.
Few things I want to call out here that took me out a little bit because while the athleticism all felt good, there were a few things, and I'm picking nits here, but I'm going to call out some things that just like I had to stop and think about, which I didn't want to do. I'm pretty sure that especially in 2005 or whenever that was supposed to, 13 years before 2006. I don't think you could take a sponsorship from Adidas and then go play college tennis. In fact, I'm positive that you couldn't.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't understand why there was an Adidas party for her where she's like on all the billboards and stuff, but then she's not going pro.
My guess is that there's some type of like, she was an amateur, and as an amateur, you can still have sponsors, but then when you go to college, obviously at that point, you wouldn't have been allowed to have sponsors, so maybe that would have ended, and then she'd have to go pro to get the sponsors back or something. I don't know, but there was no NIL, your point.
Yeah, there was no NIL, which also flagged when everybody's wearing like the Dunkinator t-shirts.
Yeah.
And like famously, you can't in 2005, you couldn't walk into the co-op and buy anything with Vince Young's name on it.
Right. No college athlete was allowed to profit from their image and likeness.
And therefore, the schools also couldn't use it.
Right.
Which is one of the ways that the NIL all started shaking out is like you had NCAA football video game, and it's like, well, that dude's number 10 and 6'5" and plays quarterback for the Longhorns, so we know who that's supposed to be.
Right.
And y'all are making money off of it, but he's not because you're not actually using it. So those are just two things where I was like, wait, I don't think you could do that.
Yeah,
but
anyway. Not historically accurate.
Yeah. But just a couple of things that were kind of interesting from the amateur / pro nature of the endorsements.
So they go to that party. They both pretty much actually watching her play tennis, they become like immediately drawn in by her, right?
Yep.
I liked the scene where they're both sitting there in the stands next to each other, mouths agape. As she just like smokes this chick who they go on to show like wins all the women's stuff. So the point being that if Tashi had stayed healthy, she would have been far and away the best women's player in the world.
Yep.
But at first they're doing the back and forth. The two guys are watching both girls hit, and then by the end of it, they're just both staring at Tasha and like drooling on Tashi and drooling on themselves. So they go to this party, they meet her, and pretty immediately you get the feeling like, all right, these dudes are close, but it's like, the question a lot of people are asking watching this movie is like, wait, are these two guys gay? What's the deal with their sexuality? Because there's the vibes are all over the fucking place.
Yeah. A lot of homoeroticism happening.
Oh, tons of it, right? And then it builds throughout the course of the movie to the churros and whatnot, where you're just like, okay, come on, like what are we doing? Anyway, these two dudes who have strong homoerotic vibes both go after the same girl.
Yeah,
they convince her to come to their dorm room, their shitty, fucked up,
the hotel they're staying,
gross hotel, whatever.
Yeah.
Where it seems like on her side, they're both just like into her, obsessed with her, in love with her, head over heels, or at least in lust immediately. On her side, it feels like she's into the idea of like being able to control these two dudes.
Totally.
She's like, wait, have you guys ever gone after the same girl before? And they're like, no. One of them like has a girlfriend at the time. She doesn't care. So she sets up this whole like 3-way makeout thing on the bed, right? Where she ends up just getting them to make out while she leans back and watches. And you're just like, wait, what is happening here? And then she blue balls both these dudes by just bouncing.
Yeah.
Which is when you're supposed to pick up like, okay, the control element for her is a big piece of this thing.
100%.
Like she gets off on the manipulation a little bit.
I loved the ending of this movie. I thought I thought the last 10 minutes did a nice job wrapping everything up, but this first 45 minutes was the best part of the movie.
It was.
And this scene where the way that they capture the Patrick Art relationship as teens.
It was impressive.
Was really, really impressive. Kudos to two guys that are already in their 30s being able to pull this off, by the way.
Yeah, that was...
Because
that was something.
So many times you're like, okay, these guys are going on 40 and we're supposed to believe that they're 17. They picked two guys that they could young up real nicely. So the makeup and the wigs and all that was super well done. You felt their bond. I loved how they it just felt very real that these guys were so close that they didn't have a problem with both being yeah, we're both going after her.
Right.
Which added also to the latent kind of wait, is there also something kind of between them?
Right.
They're so okay with it.
Well, because they're even talking about, they're like, what do we think, we're both gonna bang her? And the other guy's like, I don't know, that'd be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also Mike Feist.
Yeah. That's how I've been saying.
I kept thinking, I was like, is that Domhnall Gleeson? They look similar to me.
Domhnall Gleeson and John Mulaney.
Oh,
he
wow.
also gives big John Mulaney vibes. Yeah.
That's he's a mix of them.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yep. I thought about both of those guys while watching him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this scene where, and then Tashi as well, Zendaya plays a 17, 18-year-old girl to a T. This was so perfect. And this little relationship with them, sitting on the floor, smoking the cigarettes, passing around the beer, and then doing something kind of crazy, but all keeping it relatively PG-13. You know what I mean? It's just the beginning of the experimentation.
Right.
I mean, it was just it was done flawlessly. I'm just sitting in the theater just grinning because it's funny too. It's really funny watching her manipulate the situation to get them to kind of
end up on each other instead of her.
Which you kind of feel like maybe they needed to do and get out of the way anyway.
Well, and I mean, just to draw the parallel, the end of the movie is those two dudes hugging over the middle of the net.
Yeah.
She's in the stands watching,
yeah.
right? So it parallels that scene perfectly.
Totally.
You said you thought they probably took that one conversation about how tennis is a relationship and built the movie around that. I think it was that and this scene in the bedroom, right? Because that's you take those two scenes and you have your whole movie, you just build everything else out around it. But no, I'm completely with you. First 45 minutes, this thing has you locked in. You're just like, what is going to happen with these people? What the fuck is this movie going to become? Are they all going to date together? But at the end of that scene, before she leaves the room, she's like, whoever wins the match tomorrow, basically, I'll date.
Can have my number, yeah. Yep.
And so as we know, Josh O'Connor, his character, Patrick, is the one who wins that match. They end up dating. But, of course, Art and Tashi end up at Stanford together. So they're in college together while her boyfriend, his best friend, Patrick, is off trying to become a pro, right?
Yep.
He's kind of like, school is stupid. I'm going to go get money.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't want using a racket to be my only skill or whatever.
Yeah. She values her education.
Right. But the whole time you get the it's very obvious that Art is not okay with them dating. That the match never ended for him, right?
That's right.
The competition remains on forever. Did watching this movie make you long for the days of your youth where sexual confidence was plentiful? Today's sponsor, Hims, can help. Ever find yourself in a love triangle revolving around tennis but feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? With Hims, you will feel confident knowing you can get hard and stay hard. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office, but through Hims, now you can get treated for ED without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to doctor-trusted ED treatment options such as chewable hard mints, brand name treatments like Viagra, or generic alternatives for up to 95% cheaper. The process is simple and 100% online. No uncomfortable doctor's visits. Answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships to you for free. No insurance is needed. If ED is getting you down, it's time you join the hundreds of thousands of trusted Hims subscribers and get treated. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/OCC. That's HIMS.com/OCC for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/OCC. Hard mints are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. After the first 45 minutes, things do get a little repetitive for a while, where you're just kind of like, okay. And then really, you said you loved the last 15 minutes, and I want to talk about that. I want to make sure we go back to that, because I had a different reaction to the end of the movie.
All right.
But the next part, you see everything kind of start to unravel, right? Like Tashi gets injured, which we knew was coming because the whole film is built on these flash backwards and forwards through time.
But the very first, or one of the very first scenes, right, when Tashi and Art are in the hotel room and they're doing prep for whatever tournament he's in. Did you know right away that they were together?
Not immediately.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't either, which I think was intentional.
Yeah,
you're not. She is kind of cold. You're supposed to get the impression, I think, first that she is his manager, coach
for sure,
whatever.
Yeah,
and then it's almost like a reveal that like
they're married,
that they're together, and then that they're married,
and they have
child
a kid.
Is his.
Yeah, that part is a big.
It took me a while, and I feel like that was on purpose. That you're like, oh, wait, holy shit, like. They got married and had a kid. Like, this is a real family,
right?
And so but I think aids in the to build out the Tashi character.
Yeah,
that it's not really how she sees herself. Almost like first and foremost, she is the coach.
She's his coach, man. They just happen to be married and have a kid. The rest of it's like circumstantial.
Totally.
But yeah, no, you're definitely, that's something you get more and more of throughout the course of the movie. But early on, my impression was like, it seems like they're together, but they have a really weird dynamic because she is definitely like sees her like she treats him like a client.
And then to the credit of this of the middle of the movie, which I did find a little bit slower at times, and you kind of mentioned it with the score. There are great scenes in the middle. The churro scene is really, really good.
That's a good one, yeah.
There are musical cues that kind of pull you back in. And continue telling the story. I won't go so far as to say that it drags, but I will say that had I not been in the theater, I probably would have pulled out my phone in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments where it was just like, all right, I get it. These two dudes, this girl, come on, let's get to it. You know what I mean? Like, let's move this thing along, sort of.
But what the middle of the movie does kind of build out, I think, is the fact that Art is like, it has always held the torch for her. Is kind of a puppy dog, and it will be in service to Tashi, even though he's the star and she's the coach. You know,
right?
Like he is, tied to the leash.
Yeah, he's her player,
and Patrick would never give that to her. Basically,
yeah, he's the independent bad boy.
He's the independent bad boy. Yeah, which is why she can't stay away.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I think she likes those things about both of them, right?
Yep.
But it does make you feel like Art's just a big cuck.
A little bit.
You know,
sure, but Art, also
he seems okay with that too.
Wins like 3 Grand Slams and is a super successful tennis player.
Yeah,
so.
very wealthy.
Yeah,
makes a lot of money off of this shit. Whereas his boy is just this busted ass literal bum who's like living in his car and doesn't shower and showing up to weird tournaments to try to win a few $1,000. Fucking tire shop.
Phil's Tire Town, dude.
Phil's Tire Town.
Little challenger out in New Rochelle.
That was one element of the tennis thing where I was like, okay, no one who's won a Grand Slam or any amount of U.S. Opens or Wimbledons or whatever
would like pop into this tournament.
Show up at some local fucking bumfuck Phil's Tire truck.
Okay, so it is. We obviously don't follow tennis religiously.
No.
It's kind of like that. I'm pretty sure is like the Corn Ferry Tour compared to the PGA, the real PGA Tour,
right?
And so, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that you can go play one of those if you're on the full ATP tour.
Yeah, I don't know.
What it reminded me of more was like when let's just throw out Justin Verlander is rehabbing for the Astros. And he gets in a start at AAA.
Right. Except that it's more like when Jose Abreu is so bad at first base that they literally ship his ass to like some fucking high school league that he's playing at right now. Because it feels below AAA. Like this is like, it's sponsored by a tire shop.
Phil's Tire Town. I mean, he does great business up there in New York.
He's got the best tires. Anyway. So we go from like finding out she gets hurt to finding out their relationship and like
and she gets her right after right after she tries to kind of insert herself as a coach for Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Again, we're building this idea that what she cares about is tennis and tennis is sex. Tennis is the relationship.
Yeah.
And she can't really separate the two.
Yeah.
So when he says...
Tennis is life.
Tennis is life. When he says, can we talk about something other than tennis? The sex is immediately over.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
She's
she
completely
hops off
uninterested.
Of him and uninterested.
Dry as a desert.
Dry. And so they have this big blow-up fight. They essentially break up.
They did a really good job between Zendaya and Josh O'Connor for Tashi and Patrick's, like, the energy between them, whether it be the sexual energy or the fighting energy, like the conflict. Both were super believable. And, like, passionate, and, like, you feel... That is, look, for the things this movie lacked in storytelling, which I found some, I found it to be lacking some, it made up for with, like, character development and character understanding. Like, you really feel like you understand all three of these main characters pretty freaking well by the end.
Yeah.
Even if it's not super complicated, like Zendaya's character is basically like, I love tennis and nothing else matters.
And I'm kind of an ice queen. And like, and my biggest turn on is control and manipulation. And
Patrick's like,
tennis.
I'm a bad boy. I don't like to conform, and I don't really give a shit what anybody else thinks. And
yeah, I saw some commentary online that it could have been interesting if they explored more of like the class, because there are some borderline throwaway lines about how he doesn't need to be a struggling pro. He comes from a shitload of money. He can go sit on the board of his parents' company whenever he wants. There's early in the film, we get again, very kind of like 1, 2, 3 lines about how Zendaya did not come from money.
Right.
So there's like there's some class stuff happening within the love triangle that I think probably could have been plumbed a little bit more.
It was honestly a little confusing because the takeaway I had at one point was like, all right, so like Patrick is like the broke guy. He needs the money. He's hustling to like pay the bills.
They go to great lengths to say that. The dude is like begs for half of a Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwich.
Right.
You know?
So he doesn't have money at all.
Well, he's living the life of a struggling
But he
athlete.
could go, his family has money, right? That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I was just like, he's the poor one. So I thought the stuff they were like, one of them's a rich boy, one of them's a poor bad boy. Like I was just like grabbing onto the most basic version of that.
They are both rich boys.
Okay. Just one of them is completely, turned away from that lifestyle and is living like a...
Yes, because he is,
bohemian.
He's doing a little bit of a performance that he is this down on his luck, struggling pro.
Okay.
That that needs this. That this is what he does. So he's too proud to go back and live off of the wealth and privilege of his parents.
Yeah, it's just a weird vibe. That character, I wanted to punch that dude in the face so many times throughout the course of this movie. And I know I'm supposed to want that at different points in the movie, but it was just like, fuck, y'all are weird.
The in the breakup scene, there's I haven't completely figured out what the meaning of it was. I'd like, but when she kind of ends the sexual tryst there, she throws on his white t-shirt to start stretching.
Oh yeah.
And he pulls on the gray I told you t-shirt that she had on.
Right.
And there's like, I don't know if it was supposed to be like the passing of an energy or if like if he takes that I told you t-shirt and he's wearing that t-shirt essentially for the rest of the film, every time they like pop back into their lives, that's the t-shirt that he's wearing.
Right.
And so there's something like he's saying something with that t-shirt, maybe eventually, I told you, to Art, to Tashi, to somebody. But I thought there was a neat little switch, a swap that they don't mention, that they do it.
I took it as another sign of the connectivity between these people, like that even if she does go off and have a family with Art,
right,
like really it's all three of them in this. There's no separating the three of these people. They cannot escape each other.
Sure.
They're all tied together.
Yeah.
Right. And that was, I mean, look, the movie does a lot of things with sexuality. The question you end up asking is like, how much are Art and Patrick's characters acknowledging that they are connected in this way too?
Uh-huh.
Like not just, as friends, but sexually and with this woman in between them sort of. And I feel like that's where the ending tried to give us some answers.
Okay. You ready? Let's
talk about the
Let's
end.
talk about the ending.
All right. So At this point, when we're getting to the end, I'm like, all right, let's fucking wrap it up, guys. Like, come on. Not in like the worst way. I wasn't like, this movie sucks, I want to get out of here. But I was just like, Jesus Christ, like how many more slow motion shots of one person smirking can I possibly take before the fucking next techno song kicks in, like blows my eardrums out? Like, come on. I was just getting a little bit bored. So the movie... Okay, first of all, I have to talk about the stupid racket symbol. When they get into that scene early in the film where he's like, you have a tick? Every time you're about to serve, you hold the ball up to the racket's eye or whatever. Mm-hmm. I was immediately, just having watched a shitload of movies and being, a storyteller or whatever myself, I was like, oh, that's obviously going to be used.
They're going to come back
when
to that.
he bangs her later. He's going to use that in like their final match or whatever, and that's exactly what happens. But when he holds it up to tell him, like, essentially, like, not essentially, he's telling him, I banged your wife. Your wife. While they're in the middle of a tennis match, sponsored by Phil's Tire Shop.
Phil's Tire Town.
And then in his next serve, Art doesn't even respond to it, just lets the ball go by him, right?
Yeah. We call that an ace.
I was like, what the... Yeah, that's an ace. I was like, what the fuck is this? What is it? And she's like sitting in the crowd watching. I was like, these two, are they going to fight? What's going to happen here?
Are they going to fight? Are they going to fuck?
Are they going to fight or fuck? That's what you're asking the whole movie. And next thing you know, Art is like trying to take his head off with the serve.
Yeah.
But then like they end up having this big rally, this final rally, where it's just back and forth, the fucking intensity's building. And then they meet at the center of the net. And when Art goes up for the spike, it's like, my read was Patrick's like, oh no, he's going to fall directly on the middle and hurt himself or something. So I'm going to catch him like I'm a ballerina. Mm-hmm. And then they're embracing over the net, but you can't even tell who won the point. And Zendaya's in the crowd, and she goes, come on! And at first I was like, oh, she's angry that they didn't, continue battling because tennis is all that matters. But then she like smiles like, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Are we all, they're just, so I'm assuming they're a happy throuple living happily ever after. That's the movie.
They all move out to White Plains just live as a throuple?
That's just it. That's...
Okay. So I'm gonna break it down in my interpretation of everything that's happened.
Please.
Okay. So a key piece is that Patrick has told Tashi the night prior that he will throw this match. He will let Art win. Side note: what the hell was happening with the windstorm? Why did we go like old timey movie set with it? And there's just like pamphlets and paper blowing everywhere and like hurricane-esque winds. What the hell was that?
That scene was patently absurd.
What the hell was the wind scene? The windstorm the night.
It was too over the top symbolic. It's like, the storms are brewing now, baby. Things are getting crazy. Like, it's like, all right, come on. Like, that's a very, very, very old school filmmaking technique where it's like things start to get dark in the story, and all of a sudden it's raining, and thunder hits.
The whole thing, the paper blowing around was so like movie from 1982. Right?
It was just very over the top.
I just feel like, you're on the sound stage and all they have is like giant fans.
Right.
And they're like, that's how we'll show that it's a windy storm. It's just like shit is just blowing across. Like,
it's like a tornado, though. Yeah, it's like, get in the car. This is unsafe. What are you people doing?
Okay.
So, but yes, he's told her, I'll throw the match so that your boy Art can get his confidence back and you guys can go on to win a Grand Slam or whatever the fuck.
And at that point, I think that she's doing what she thinks is best for her and for Art, and has kind of taken the tennis out of it because she thinks that Patrick is kind of a putz on and off the court.
Yeah, he doesn't take it seriously. Yeah. He doesn't value the tennis side of it. He's not actually. He never tried.
So we get out there. It's match point in Art's favor, and that's when Patrick tells him, "Hey, I banged your wife last night, or in Atlanta, or whenever, but." I banged her since y'all have been married.
Your wife cheated on you with me.
Yeah. Then takes this. This is immediately after he has gone double fault to
start to throw the
match point. Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that this is kind of him saying, well, I've thrown the match. Now let's see if he'll take it, essentially. And he doesn't. He lets that serve go by, stunned, shocked. He doesn't know what to do with himself. We don't know what's going to happen. Tashi's over there like, what the hell is happening? I guess that storm really was a brewing. Ball goes back to Art. He first tries, he aims the ball straight at Patrick's head, tries to take it off.
Right.
Gets a little bit of the anger out. And then calm returns to him. And he says, you know what? This tennis court, this is where we're going to hash this out. This is where we're going to talk about it.
Not in therapy.
Not in therapy.
Not in a coffee shop.
No.
Right here.
Right here.
Using these rackets and this ball.
And I think that competition between them is ignited again. And we, with so many lines, this is a callback to, but it's like, when the first time when Patrick's like when they're young and he's talking about how he doesn't really care about the tennis, but he just had so much fun out there playing with Art, right? And I just think it's on. They basically drop they drop whatever it is between them and are like, we're just gonna fucking play tennis now. And then they have this insane rally, which Tashi, also a callback to an earlier line where she's just like, I just want to see some good fucking tennis.
Yeah.
And that's
all she wants.
That's
man.
all she wants. And so that echoes that her primal scream on the tennis court earlier in the movie is the moment where we were calling out like that was the 15 seconds of the relationship. That's where they understood each other on the court. And so that again, that's what we're echoing, is that she is like, oh my God, they're really doing it. They're talking. They're having their relationship on the court.
They're talking tennis.
This is good fucking tennis.
Tennis talk.
And I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I'm so wet now. Yeah, no, I mean, but.
And so the point,
but who the fuck won?
They're doing drop shots. They're getting closer to the net. Right? You've seen that happen in pro tennis sometime.
Yeah, all the time.
The weird thing for me was like, I think he's going to jump over the net, and I don't think that's allowed. It seems like he's coming over.
No one does that.
And then I was like, wait, is he just going to smash?
I thought he was going to kill him with a racket, dude.
Is he going to smash Patrick in the head with his racket?
How many times in this movie was it like, all right, we want the audience to be confused about whether it's violence or sexuality that's about to occur?
But then I was like, okay, I guess that was just for the visual, because then he lands on his side. I think he won the point. But again, I don't think that Luca, I don't think the film is interested in who wins the match.
Absolutely not.
Because that's a tiebreaker. And so that whoever won that point didn't win the match anyway.
My impression was
they got to play like 6 more points.
My impression was the match is over. It doesn't matter. There is no winner. There is no loser.
They're just going to do a pile right in the middle of the tennis court.
These two men have found each other again, and that's the whole point. Because when they show him in the air, Art, in the I guess the Jordan logo version of tennis, like the tennis version of that, where he's like racket back, ready to spike the ball, but then you realize he's literally like above the net itself.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's highly illegal. And then the other guy, at first I'm like, oh, he's also going to jump up to try to spike it, and they're going to like meet in midair and like sword fight with their fucking dicks and rackets. But then it's really that he's gearing up to like catch him, and then they embrace, and they're hugging and smiling, and you're like, well, that guy just told that guy he banged his wife. This is so awkward and strange. His wife's right over there.
Yeah,
she's like both of their coach maybe now.
Maybe now, yeah, I think so.
No?
I think so.
What? Also, she's like, I'll bang you if that's what it takes to get you to throw the match. And then they bang. And then he doesn't throw the match. And
I think there's
just so much random shit in there, though. I was just like, this is so confusing. I don't even know what to make of it.
For me, in that moment, it was like, well, I can't throw this match now. This is too fun. Like, and I don't think anybody in that moment, Tashi included, wants him to throw the match anymore.
Yeah. No, at the end of the day, there's something about polyamory in this whole movie, like in terms of messaging. Because like I genuinely, my takeaway was like, oh, these 3 people end up together. Like, these 3 people are going to be together in some form or fashion.
Okay.
They're going to find the formula here.
I'm honestly not sure where I landed on that. But counterpoint, Laura walked away and thought that Art's kind of like smile, acceptance of what Patrick has just told him, and then willingness to play the game, and then the
Before
embrace.
the points, yeah.
And then the embrace at the middle after the, like at the end of the point, was more of a like fuck her, we don't need her.
I mean, maybe. I don't know, though.
Like maybe they're both kind of like done with the toxicity. You know, she didn't want to be a homewrecker. Maybe they shouldn't let her be. So, but I don't know where I fall, because she is part of it with the scream. Like, I feel like that scream is super important.
And I think what you're bringing it back to, and he does the symbol, holds the ball up to the racket eye. And then there's 20 more seconds of slow motion shit for you to unpack. One part of which
then
is
we go
both of
POV,
them,
you're a tennis ball.
But both of them grin at each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's like, hi, almost like, hi, you knew I'd bang your wife. and the other guy's like, hi, I did know you would at least try.
Yeah.
And almost like, good for you for succeeding. We're still where we were 15 years ago. Having a match over this random chick who used to be a badass tennis player, but now is an obsessively controlling coach who can't let go of either of us sexually. Like, it was a lot. There's no clear-cut ending. Obviously, they wanted us to read into it, right?
There's a little bit of conversation about this in the windstorm when Patrick is driving Tashi around or back to the hotel or whatever, where I think they even say where he's still a fucking kid or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, of course.
I spent my whole life
hitting a ball with a racket. And I think all three of them are in states of arrested development, I think, from that initial tryst.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's part of what this movie wants to say. And I've not wrapped my arms completely around it, but either that going into sport or only doing sport, or maybe just that it's really hard to change your true inner self at any point. But they're all versions of themselves. Like, none of them have really evolved
right
from when they were 18 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything you just said hits on different elements.
Yeah.
Look, and it's that's the thing about this movie that makes it not bad. There's a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
Because if you were going just off the storytelling, it might be bad. If you were going just off the storytelling and you remove the soundtrack, I'm confident it would be bad. But when you put it all together, and there is deep depth to plumb, there's things to read into. It says a lot of things about humanity and sexuality and relationships, and of course also tennis. It makes it fun. It was at the very least fun.
Absolutely, and I think that this movie is destined to be a cult classic. And
it definitely has that written all over it.
And when we think of cult classics, whether it's Haggard for us, or Rocky Horror Picture Show, or we can name a bunch of others. One of the things that I think that a lot of those movies have in common is that they are good bad movies, right? That's almost what it takes to be a cult classic. Is something. Now this one is obviously having success.
Yeah, to be a true cult classic, I think you're right. Because if it's not good bad, then it's just good, and if it's just good, then it's not a cult classic, because then everybody thinks it's good.
And the critical reception to this movie is very positive. Honestly, higher than I thought it would be.
It was at 89% on the tomato meter, 73% audience score.
73% audience score, which I think is usually when audience score is lower than critical score. By that type of degree,
it's a little weird.
It's a little weird. That's usually the sign that the critics are just in there sniffing their own
in their bubble
bubble artsy.
7.5 out of 10 on IMDb though, which is still higher than I thought it would be.
That's 7.5. That's right where I would put this. I think I would put this film. 73 audience score, I think, is right there in that 73, 75 range. I feel good about that.
Yeah, C+.
And it's hard to translate the 7.5 to I know that's how it works
letters.
grade wise.
Yeah. Well, because C+ doesn't feel high enough.
No, C+ doesn't feel high enough.
B-.
But I do. Yeah, I walked out of this movie and I was not that was fucking awesome, and I also wasn't that was terrible.
Right. It's somewhere in between.
But I kind of had both thoughts almost
at different points.
For
sure. No, I mean, look, it was a weird one, man. It was just because it says a lot about a lot of different things, some of which we started to unpack today, some of which our conversation made me realize for the first time, having just finished watching it this morning. But yeah, This is one I might rewatch one day.
Yeah.
Just to see like what the fuck was that?
I would totally rewatch this.
Like
this
what
movie.
what in the hell was that? What the hell just happened? Because there were so many scenes where I was like, the scene would end and I was like, damn, that was a good movie scene.
Yeah.
That was a well done scene of a movie right there. That happened probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
That's tough to accomplish. Like the whole package to me, looking at it, I'm still like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this thing. But then there's individual moments where I was like, that was fucking magic.
And I don't know whether to call out like the pacing or what, but that's how I felt too. I felt like there was really, really good scenes at every point on the timeline. It's just the in between stuff of those scenes was just a little wasn't all fully cooked to make this movie like an A+. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered about, this is the last thing I'll say. I really wondered about the sexy elements of it. Like when you're sprinkling this much sexuality throughout this thing, and I mean it's pretty nonstop.
Yep.
Like it's just like at different points you're like, Jesus, I'm drowning in it. It did, but I asked myself, like, why not have a full-blown sex scene then? If there's going to be this much sexuality and sexiness, like, you're not going to give me at least two people banging? Maybe even 3?
That's a good point. We actually never see any banging.
Why is no one banging? I want some banging. Like, it just occurred to me, and I'm sure that was a decision.
Yeah, I think so.
But I'm just curious, like, what that was about, because there was so much sexuality and then yet no actual sex.
Because life is sex, Ross. It's just always simmering right under the surface.
Well, the tennis is the sex.
The tennis is also sex, yeah.
So, but yeah, that occurred to me too.
I got one more question for you, because we didn't really touch on it. Performances overall, how'd you feel about the acting in this film?
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, especially given what they're working with here.
So did this bump Zendaya up for you acting wise?
I kept her about the same spot I had her.
Okay, all right.
I mean, Euphoria put her pretty high.
Yeah.
Different points in Euphoria. Dune, to be honest, is like, I don't know. Her performance is not all that complicated to me.
Right.
It's a pretty straightforward character. Not a ton of screen time.
Yeah.
Pretty one-dimensional. I mean, if that's fair to say. So Dune didn't really do shit for me, Zendaya-wise. I thought this was... Look, Euphoria is a TV show, so it's a different medium. I thought this was impressive enough, and especially I thought it was cool that she was willing to tackle like sexy girl in a weird tennis thriller role.
Well, I mean, she's already been like ultra broken drug addict, so that.
Yeah, that's a very different spectrum though than this. You know what I mean? Like it just, I don't know. I thought it was cool that she tackled this.
Yeah,
I thought it was a cool role to take on and not be afraid of.
I thought the role suited her really well. I thought it played to her strong points. Like she's really good at being kind of like icy,
swaggering,
cutthroat, a lot of swagger, that that type of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm telling you that no actor in Hollywood is more suited to play a professional tennis player than that girl. She moves like a pro. Like you believe it when she's out there on the court. Yeah, but all in all, I thought it was impressive from a performance standpoint. I thought all 3 of them did pretty fucking well.
I thought so too.
And there were only a couple moments where I was, in terms of the actual physical tennis, that I was like, yeah. But most of it worked, man. It was a bizarre. I mean, look, one of the things about it that kind of shocked me is like, what did I say the budget was for this thing?
$55 million.
Like that they were able to get this made in 2024 almost. Like we've talked so much about like the marvelization of Hollywood and how they only do these like existing IP, like No Doubt,
right?
And then you throw fucking Challengers, the tennis love triangle starring Zendaya in there, and you're just like, wait, what? So I'm happy for them that they're having success, because this is the kind of quirky, weird shit that I would like to see more often.
Apparently, like Fall Guy is not living up to expectations in theaters right now. I think the Amy Winehouse biopic is struggling, and there's one other that I don't think is doing super well. I think right now Hollywood's in a really weird place, because I don't think there's much rhyme or reason to what hits and what doesn't.
Doesn't seem to be.
Like, it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I think the kind of dirty secret is that if you catch on social media, you will catch in the theaters now.
Yeah, a little bit. If you can meme it.
If you meme,
they will come.
You can dream.
Yeah. Weird stuff. Anyway, this was a fun ride, Challengers. Next week, Barrett and I will be discussing 2 HBO shows, both of which have their season finale on Sunday. The Jinx, Part 2, will be coming to a close. Part 5 was, once again, insane. It's just wild to watch. Very excited to talk about the final 2 parts.
Sir?
Yeah, dude. Guy's a fucking nut. And then The Sympathizer, which has also been good fun. I finished episode 2, enjoying the ride. Got a lot to pack in before we get to the final episode on Sunday. So that's next week. The Jinx Part 2 and The Sympathizer. Then the first week in June, we will be doing our House of the Dragon Season 1 recap. And the second week in June, the week before the Season 2 premiere of House of the Dragon, we'll be discussing the trailers and the teasers and making predictions on what we think will unfold in Season 2 of House of the Dragon, which is just around the corner at this point. Very exciting stuff. Of course, we would ask that you join us on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles later this week for further discussion and digestion of Challengers and anything else y'all are watching. In an ad-free exclusive episode available only on Patreon, which is driven by hotline calls from our listeners on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. That will do it for today's show. Thank you all for being with us here. Remember, we are available on all the major podcast platforms, but also in full video on youtube.com/@oysters, clams, cockles for your viewing pleasure. Please subscribe on YouTube, throw us a like, leave a comment. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, rate, review. Same on Spotify, rate. Do what you can to share the show with those you know. That's the number one way we can grow. Word of mouth. We appreciate y'all. If you like what we're doing, tell your friends and family. For more from me, Ross Bolin, check out the Ross Bolin podcast or Banging the Can if you're a Houston sports fan. Mr. Dudley, where can the people follow you to see everything else you do?
I'm on Instagram and X. At Barrett Dudley.
I'm at WR Bolin. Go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some merch. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We look forward to hearing everyone's reactions on Patreon and reading them on social media. Holler at us. Until next time, peace.